Hello, everybody. It's been another great year speaking here at AtlSecCon. Who here has seen me talk here before? Woohoo! So I'm going to tell you a quick story. About 6 years ago, I got an email from a guy named Travis Barlow. I'm not sure if you know him. And he said, yeah, we're a conference here in Canada. We want to have you here as a speaker for next year, blah, 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 blah. And then we started talking, and then I came here and I gave my first talk here in 2013. That was my first talk here. I stayed for about 2 more days, and three more days, and I just walked around the city after the conference ended, and I just fell in love with the city. And after that, I just started talking to all my friends and family about how beautiful this city was, how far away it was from Argentina, but how similar they were in a lot of things and how different they were in many others, but how I loved it and I would wish to move here and live here one day. So after the next years, I kept coming here as a speaker. I started to develop a lot more relationship with a lot of people here, colleagues that became friends, and always kept staying here in Halifax longer and longer and longer. And about 2 years ago, I said, what if I actually were to move here? How possible would that be? How cool would that be? So I started doing research and getting ready to analyze the actual option of me moving here. And about 2 weeks ago, I moved to Halifax. So now I live in Halifax thanks to this conference. And thanks to all of you. So yeah, I'm very happy. Now I live here, we're all neighbors. I'm gonna start going to HASC meetings and all that. So we started the company, we started a branch of the company here, so we're gonna do business here too, so that's pretty exciting. But it was all thanks to this conference. Thanks to an email from Travis from 6 years ago saying, hey, I want you to speak at a conference next year. So that's it. So this is my 6th year as a speaker in a row here, and I couldn't be happier. We have a great venue. The conference has grown a lot. I just heard yesterday that we reached 700 attendees this year, which is amazing. And I remember how the conference was in 2013. It was much different than it is now. So I'm very proud of what this community has become, and it's all thanks to you coming back and recommended the conference to friends and colleagues. So let's keep that growing. We have a lot of room to grow, and the conference has all the energy and potential to do that. So I'm very happy. So thank you for having me one more time, and now you're gonna have me longer because it's not gonna be so difficult to get me here like spending 58 hours in Toronto like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. So that's it. Let's talk about medical records. Does anyone here work in the medical industry, in the health industry? 1 person, 2, 3, 4? Okay. So I'm not gonna be able to lie or exaggerate, so that's good. My company deals a lot with consulting, and we do mostly services towards strengthening the strategy of our clients. We don't sell products or anything, so we just rely on the strategy that our clients have and how we can help them. And over the last 3 to 4 years, we've merged a lot back in Argentina with the medical industry, doing very specific projects, for that industry. So we got to know a lot about the underground of what happens with everything related to medical, regarding the people, the risks, the real cost of information, what can be done to improve medical industry back in Argentina with technology is not that available in that industry as to maybe some hospitals don't even have computers. It's that bad back there. So we did a lot of research about what's going on in the underground market regarding specific information about medical records and all that. So first off, let me ask you a simple question. Who here had a pen test done in the last 6 months in their company? Receiving, not giving services of pen test? Okay. Of those few who raised their hands, who corrected everything that the auditing company showed in the report? Like, you had to do this and this and that. Who actually did that? It may have been because of bureaucracy, budget, or you simply maybe were not agreeing with what the auditing company reported, or you just might have said, screw with it, and you just put the report in a drawer and forgot about it. So many times that the pen tests that are being done, that aren't a lot of the times the corrections that could be done easily or quickly, sometimes they're not executed properly, and that could bring a couple of problems that I'm going to talk about in a bit. So let me ask you another thing. What really is out there to be protected by all of us in the security industry? What is really lost or damaged in every type of incident, in an attack or anything? What does it all come to? And the answer to the question is real simple. We're all talking about money. We invest money, we try to recover money, or get a return on our investment, or we try not to lose money. So if a terrorist attack happens, we all are going to grieve about the people that died or were injured in that, but there are some people up high that are going to be thinking about the money that it's going to cost them that incident. That's awful, but it is the truth. So when it comes down to industries or companies or even the health industry, everything, including any kind of incident, is all boiled down to dollars and cents. So we need to be able to quantify that in dollars and cents to be able to project what we can do about that. So we need a numeric number. So a lot of talks talk about let's hack stuff, let's hack some stuff, then a couple of question marks, and then profit. And they don't actually cover that part about how you can actually make money from a hacking incident, from an intrusion or whatever. So let's talk about that part. Let's talk about the question marks. This is the value of a server. The value of a own server could be determined by a couple of things that an attacker could do or a victim could lose. And it's separated into these categories. This was from research that Brian Krebs did in 2013 that really actually applies to today's standards. The numbers may have changed, but the separation in categories is pretty much the same. So this is all you can do with a web server. With a server, if you exploit features regarding a web server, you can run phishing, you can have illegal software put in there to distribute and be sold through your victim. You can have child pornography, or you can sell Viagra or any different types of drugs. There was an incident about 5 years ago in a child's hospital in Argentina where they breached into their servers and they installed a whole site of child pornography to be sold on that. I'm not sure if they were going for the irony or it was a huge chance, but it did. And once they found it, they found information and logging about people using that site for the last 2 to 3 years inside servers from a child hospital. So it's not just about how much the client can lose, but it's also about how much the attacker can make from there. They sell that kind of information in own servers, and I'm sure you know about that. What about email? You can do a lot of spamming from your own server, and you can launch spam campaigns for clients using breached servers. So the attacker would get money, you would get liability, and everyone loses except the attacker. So that's also a huge amount of money that could be earned in that type of attack. You can access corporate emails and then put in them for ransom or selling them directly as for competitors, as a database of emails, and you can make money from that too. Of course, if you can gather email addresses from people, you can do identity theft, because one of the main techniques used today for authenticating someone's identity is through the email. So if you can gain access to that, you can leverage that into a major, massive attack of identity theft, and you can then escalate from that into a huge payout. It's not just about selling the database of emails, it's about using those emails as weapons for a bigger attack, and then you can figure out the rest All the information that is stored in a server for the server itself is just zeros and ones. It's just files. A server does not know the importance or the criticality of an actual file. But for us, we are the ones that give that information the power or the real importance. So for a computer, it's exactly the same to have a trade secret in a TXT file than to have the recipe for a chocolate cookie in a TXT. It's the same for the server, but it's not the same for us. So what happens if you have stored information in a server that actually is a trade secret, or database of licenses, or anything related to personal content about employees or the company itself, secrets? What if they hack into the patent office and they just reroute the processes about patents, and instead of giving it to me, they give it to you because they just have to change a field in a database, and then you own the patent that it's supposed to be mine. For the server, it's not that much, but for us, that we give them importance, that's when everything spikes. Of course, we have reputation. You can own a server. You can change or alter the reputation of a company or organization. If you deface a website and then you put something wrong about that, if you put something offensive or nudity, whatever you can put it in a defacement, when you do that type of attack, can impact directly in the reputation of the client, of the victim. Also, if you do it with emails, you can launch an email campaign criticizing or talking bad about someone, or talking bad about yourself, or leaking information, and all that becomes reputation. And remember, all this that I'm saying might not be news for you, but this is all in the context of bringing that into dollars, because everything here translates into dollars. So that's what I'm going for. Of course, you can do a zombie attack for any type of computer. You can do a spam, you can do a DDoS, you can use it for proxying, you can use it for CPU power, like mining Bitcoin or whatever, or any type of thing that uses resources from the computer itself and not the actual things stored in the computer, can be used to actually get money too. Of course, you can try steal information from them. For instance, how much do you think it would be worth private keys from google.com for 24 hours? How much would that be worth? If they're going to find out, of course, and they're going to revoke the certificates, but in those 24 hours until they get to revoke them and all the browsers in the world are updated, how much money do you think you can make having a valid private key from an SSL certificate from google.com? It's not just how much they lose, but how much I can make from the attack. So if you extrapolate that into anything you can steal that regarding private keys or passwords, then you know that. There was a breach in Argentina 2 days ago. They breached into the federal police department and they downloaded 3.6 gigabytes of citizen information regarding marital status, if they are or they're not public employees from the government, if they're police officers or not, their credit history. Some of them have had a lot of medical information too, and they were able to do that because the police department in Argentina had a 10-year-old technology facing the internet for online consulting. So that's very bad. But that's Argentina, and they do worse things than that. So we're going to talk about a little bit more the higher impact things. And of course, you can take a computer hostage. It doesn't just work for employees in Telefónica in Spain with WannaCry, but it also works for actual servers. They can take them hostage until you get some ransom money. So that's the total you can get for the combination of all the things that I just said. The total of money that you can get and the other one could lose could be up to $500,000 a year in profits for the attackers. A combination, if you could do one server and do all of that, I know that's unlikely and a little far-fetched, but if you could do that and use one server for every one of the things that I just mentioned, you could make up to $500,000 per year in profits. So, recent examples. You all know about Equifax and the damage that it caused. They were able to download 143 million records from Equifax. So credit history from 143 million. It's not all American people. There's a combination of few international citizens as well, but it's mostly Americans. And they were able to download credit history, credit records, credit card information, and of course, social security numbers, addresses, phones, and a lot of personal information. So can anyone here tell us how much actual, not a guess, but an actual calculation of how much that's worth? You get information that's bound to a person for life. Social security numbers are for life. You cannot just go to the DMV and change that number. It's yours. And someone with that information can not only gather information from you from querying or consulting a website, but they can actually do actual bad stuff. They can take up a credit, a loan in their name without having a lot more to show from. But if they have a combination of all the information that was stolen from those records at Equifax, they can do a lot more damage than that. What caused it? What caused this huge, impossible to calculate attack? It was a poor procedure from application security. I'm sure you all read the report. They were basic procedures that had to be taken for hardening the web apps at Equifax, and they just didn't do it. So in terms of a computer, in terms of a system, ones and zeros, it was a small bug in a web app. That's it. No. The value that we people give to the information stored in that server as ones and zeros, that's what's giving that real information, real value. But for the computer, it was like, yeah, okay, click this and it will be over. What about Deloitte? Do you know about Deloitte? They had about a month or 3 weeks after Equifax, they also had a breach, and they were able to download trade secrets from Deloitte's clients. So it's not just information from them, it's information from their clients. And we're talking about huge companies, and we're talking about trade secrets. How much do you think, let's take an instance, a trade secret, for instance, the formula for Coca-Cola. How much is that worth? How do you calculate how much that is worth? If you can calculate about how much revenue Coca-Cola had over the last 130 years, you might get one number. If you can calculate how much money you can make by launching a secondary company that sells something very similar to Coca-Cola, then you get another number. Of course, both numbers are very high. So the value, the real value inside a trade secret is impossible to calculate, but it is very high. And what happened? They took over a privileged account. They took over an administrator account and they were remotely able to enter the database and simply download the information. So whose fault is that? Is it the admin who gave away his password? It was the admin for having a bad or short password. It was the system administrator from Deloitte that were able to allow remote access from an admin and actually download information. Was it the lack of a data loss prevention strategy and a couple of softwares lying around to prevent that from happening? I don't know. It's up to you. Every one of us may have different opinions, but the cost associated with that breach and the money lost and how much money Deloitte is going to have to pay their client for liabilities is impossible to calculate. It would have been much more easy to just not enable remote access, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. One more that is very interesting. The Australia military, also October last year, they were leaked plans, top secret plans from airplanes, engines, technology, weapons, and a lot of things that the military from Australia kept secret because they were going to launch them publicly. I think it was 2019 or 2020. That they were starting to talk to manufacturers into building those machines. So someone was able to download all the top secret plans and just disclose it to the net. Do you know about this? The other ones were a little bit more famous. This one, not so much. The reason they were able to do that is because they exploited a 12-month-old vulnerability in Apache. The server hosting that information had Apache, and they haven't patched it for 12 months. So they were able to gather that information and publish it to the web. There was one more from Accenture. This wasn't an actual breach because they reported it before it ever happened. But the funny part here is what actually happened. They had password and private keys in servers, and they forgot to add authentication to those servers. So they were starting to store the cache of those servers into Google. So people were able to find the index listing of those servers and get into them with no password at all, which could be a little bit dangerous, if you might think. I'm not sure. I don't work in this industry, but I think that's a big no-no. They were actually able to just click the Google results, go to the server, and download private keys and passwords from Accenture. So that's bad. So what about us? What's the analogy in the human world? What is our server? Where do we keep our information? Where do we keep who we are? It's a very philosophical question, and the answer is even more philosophical. This is our server. That's us. We are the combination, yeah, that too, phones too. We are a combination of body, soul, and mind, but the body takes care of all the sources of information. We go to the body for everything. If your head hurts, you take care of it from a body point of view, not from a mind point of view. If you have to go to a professional to log your system, to audit yourself, you go to the doctor and they draw blood, et cetera, et cetera. So this is our server. Just one EHR has a black market value from between $40 and $1,000. And that's talking about normal people. You and I, normal citizens that just go to work, go back, have a beer, and go to bed. I'm not talking about football players or actors or presidents. I'm talking about actual normal people that could go from 40 to 1,000 according to how important their record is, how juicy they think it may be, and I'm not talking about why a record could be juicy or not. If you want to compare that to the value in the black market about a credit card, you can go from $2 to $5 for one credit card. Normal, 2,000 limit credit card could go for $5, as opposed to 1,000 if you have a very juicy profile. We've had cases in Argentina where information about very high profile people were sold for $50,000 for just one medical record because it was very specific cases, and they held their information for ransom for $50,000. Why is that so high? Why is it that a medical record is worth more than a credit card? Let me tell you. September 2014, 4.5 million records were stolen from a company called Community Health System Incorporated. In January 2015, Anthem Health Insurance they stole from them 80 million records. And then let's make a comparison. We have Ashley Madison in July 2015. Do you remember that? Okay. They only stole 39 million records, and they only got to their full name and email address. Sure, that was more than enough to extort them and make an extortion and get some money, like I'm going to tell your wife you don't pay me, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, of course. But the information itself was not that much. The comparison for Anthem Health Insurance includes full name, social number, medical records, history of illness, and history of procedures. And we're talking from a runny nose to a sex change, anything in between. Everything that all these people that were taken care of by this company, or they stored their electronic health records in that company, everything that they have done in their entire life regarding medical procedures or illnesses or blood types or diseases or whatever has been open to the public, and it's up for ransom. Imagine, just think about yourself for a minute. Think about what you have done in what procedures you've done, or what would your medical record look like? And think if that would be, I'm not talking about losing the privacy of having that information exposed, I'm talking beyond that. Think about how can someone exploit that. The same way that someone could exploit an Apache vulnerability and then download military-grade information, think about how they can exploit that from you, from your personal record. So why is it that the theft of medical record information has increased 40% since 2013? That is because we have another problem in that industry. So far, the medical industry in the countries that we've done some research in is not caught up to the advances of requirements in other industries like banking or financial. So it's very easy to choose that path instead of trying to steal money from a bank, trying to steal electronic health records from a medical facility is much more interesting for a thief. So what can they use that information for? So why is it important to steal electronic medical record? Of course, you can make health insurance fraud. You can present information from other person into getting prescription medication. You can get it to get procedures that you would not be able to get otherwise, or get insurance if you don't have one on the name of that other person. You can do identity theft in many places. Presenting personal information is good enough, is good measure enough to just validate your identity and go forward with some other things, like getting a card, getting a loan, getting medical procedures. You would just have to think about if you have any similar experience in that, where people on the other side of the phone would ask you, like they do with a credit card, what's your address if you have additional people in your account, if you've done an expense. That same thing happens in medical industry sometimes, in where you're asked about the past of your profile, and according to that, you're authenticated into their system. So if you have that information, you can use it for fraud, or you can use it for identity theft. And of course, let's not forget about extortion. You can, of course, use this information for extortion, like give me money, or I'm going to tell everyone that you have a mole in your left butt cheek, something like that. So you can do that, a lot more, of course, but just using information that was zeros and ones stored in a server, but we ourselves give that the value of millions. So why is it so easy? And I'm not trying to get into a war with people actually working in the medical industry, because we haven't done any research in Canada. But in the countries that we have done this research in, there's a lot of protection missing from all the procedures, from the chain of custody, from the protection of the servers or the information itself, communications between institutions. For instance, if some hospital wants to gather information from another hospital from your record history, and they want to have that information, that communication is not always secure, or the procedures for physically getting access to that information are very soft too. We were able to infiltrate into a medical facility with just a couple of flash drives thrown in the floor. People would just connect it. And it's not about people connecting it. Social engineering attacks happen all the time. But I'm talking about how potentially effective that social engineering attack could go. Is if you go to some other industries where they have regulations that actually protect the leak of information, even though even if that social engineering attack could work, the victim would plug into their computers, and that attack would not go any further, because there would be high-end policies that would prevent the attack from spreading. But according to our research, that has not happened in the 3 or 4 countries that we done regarding medical facilities. So any type of basic attack would actually be a success, because of the lack of protections, non-compliance with standards that those types of facilities have nowadays. I would love to know more about Canada, so if anyone, you raise your hands, there was a couple more people. I would love to know how the status of that industry is in Canada, so I would love to invite you a beer later to talk about it a little bit more, because I really want to know how Canada is, because I want to do a comparison of how South America is according to North America. So I would love to know more about that. So just remember, this is about South America and the four countries that we did our research. So regarding authentication, we have obsolete verification processes for ID. We rely on actual people checking for IDs at the door, and falsified IDs work. So there's no electronic check of that information. We were able to just use a fake ID and get access to information from patients from different facilities. So either we sniff traffic, or we get access to the computer, or we get access to the people. There was nothing higher than that to prevent us from actually leaking the information. So they trust on the lower level of protection, which cannot, you cannot be trusted. How? Well, I just told you a little bit about that. Even basic, you know that these are basic attacks. Everyone that works in the security industry knows that all these are basic attacks. You cannot rely a successful attack on a social engineering attack. I'm not criticizing that, it's a great technique, but it's the low-hanging fruit of all the most planned attacks that you can do. If you can throw a couple of flash drives in the floor and that works, that's a serious problem. It's not like you're God for doing that. Yeah, you're very good, but it's something wrong in the background, because that attack should not have worked. And it did. In about 90% of our examples, it worked. So intrusion, social engineering, malware, or simply espionage should not be enough attack threats to get information about illnesses and procedures and all related to health from a patient. So if related to what we talked about before, if one server could be worth $500,000 to an attacker per year just because of the things that they can do with information that could be linked to fiscal or financial or credit information, and that's about $500,000 a year. My question is, what if it also contains medical records? How big it can extrapolate on the value, the final value of a breached server that contains not only what we first discussed, but also 80 million health records. So that's a question that I leave for you. If we want to talk further, I'm going to be outside. We can grab a beer and talk about that. You can tell me about your examples, or we could just sit and calculate, or just do a little flashing of what we think this could be worth. So that's my talk. Thank you very much.